The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus told his disciples this parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out at dawn to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with them for the usual daily wage, he sent them into his vineyard. Going about 9 o'clock, the landowner saw others standing idle in the marketplace, and he said to them, "You too go into my vineyard, and I will give you what is just." So they went off. And he went out again around noon and around 3 o'clock and did likewise. Going out about 5 o'clock, the landowner found others standing around and said to them, "Why do you stand here idle all day?" They answered, "Because no one has hired us." He said to them, "You too go into my vineyard." When it was evening, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, "Summon the laborers and give them their pay, beginning with the last and ending with the first." When those who had started about 5 o'clock came, each received the usual daily wage. So when the first came, they thought they would receive more, but each of them also got the usual wage. And on receiving, they grumbled against the landowner, saying, "These last ones work only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us, who bore the day's burden and the heat." He said to one of them in reply, "My friend, I am not cheating you. Did I not agree with you for the usual daily wage? Take what is yours and go. What if I wish to give this, the last one, the same as you? Or am I not free to do as I wish with my own money? Are you envious because I am generous? Thus the last will be first, and the first will be last." The Gospel of the Lord. Friends, as we listen to the passage from the Gospel today, I think if you're an HR department, you probably Grinch. This is tough business here. We cannot have preference and not to be equal to everybody and make such a discrepancies. And if you are a business owner, you probably think, "Good Lord, what a poor businessman, huh? Who came up with that idea? Who would want to run business in such a way?" Well, we will talk a little bit about this whole idea of economy of God and grace, but let's just look at the first reading to look and put a little context in what's going on in today's liturgy of the Word. So we read from the 55th chapter of Isaiah, and at that point, the Israelites are in exile. And the exile happened because what? They became disobedient to the covenant with God. And as a result, they drifted away from the relationship with God. And if God was not the center of their lives, some other things became and filled that void or that space. And as a consequence, they were conquered by other countries. You know, the beautiful thing about God, however, that God doesn't change his mind. He, once entering covenant with his people, remains faithful to always provide and to care for them. So although Israelites struggle mightily being oppressed and in exile, it is the promise of God to bring them back to experience of what they once experienced in their lives, this loving blessing of God, and to renew their hearts, to see and to experience that true love of God that longs for them to return back to that relationship with him. And the beautiful reading that we hear today assures of that, brings that sense of hope and message of better tomorrow for them. In the meantime, however, when you find yourself away from God and things don't go your way as you thought it would, we tend to create quickly a sense of justice. And the justice usually is in the very simple form. This is not fair. Life is not fair. This is just not right. That we have to go through this and the other. Life is not fair. But it's not about the fairness when we look at the readings today and the life altogether, but rather it is about the relationship. It's about the relationship with God, who through the people of Israel entered into a covenant to become so personal, so intimate, so involved with the history of humanity as no other God that we can know and think of. Inviting us to live in the way, using words of St. Paul from today's second reading, in the manner worthy of being called Christians. That's what we are called to do. This is the essence of our relationship. And this is what the Israelites lost, and this is what God promises them, to bring that fulfillment of once was their experience. I think with that in mind, it's important to return back to our gospel reading, that sense of relationship. You know, it seems that between last week and this week and all that is we missed in the readings from Matthew's Gospel, chapter 19, is like a boot camp of relationship and growing in our relationship with God and with one another. See, last week what we talked about this whole idea of forgiveness. Remember? The whole idea of forgiveness. How many times do I need to forgive? You know, it would be easier to have a calculator by our side. And that would be so much better for us. Because if we would be given a task that, you know, you need to forgive 7 times a day, at least we will know, okay, 7 times I'm done, okay? And we will walk on, we will move on. But this is not a genuine relationship that the Lord invites us to partake. He invites us not to be worried and care much about spending ourselves, but rather rejoicing in the ability of giving of ourselves to others. Because the economy of God works such a way that the more we give, the more we receive. And you can never, ever run out of every virtue and acts of kindness, being forgiveness, love, understanding, mercy, and everything else. You just cannot. So this is the essence of our reading last week. In the meantime, today we read from the 20th chapter. The 19th chapter is this kind of transition that it is good to put actually in the context here, because it speaks about, so Jesus talks to Peter and Peter and his disciples about the forgiveness. And the Peter response, which we don't hear it, you can read it on your own, It's like, so if we're going to do all of this, what is there for us? What is there for us? You know, Peter is calculated. He's a fisherman. He knows how to count fish. That's what his livelihood was all about. He want to know. He want to know the number to make sense in his mind. And again, the passage from 19th chapter will remind us that Jesus says, well, if you do everything in my name, you will receive 100-fold. That's a huge proposition. So today, in the foundation of those two lessons, we speak about this idea about the landowner who hires workers. And when we listen to this passage, I think, like it or not, we tend to take sides. Either it's fair or it's not fair. From our way of looking at things, we may conclude that you work hard and more, you deserve more. If you don't, well, just too bad. Too bad. If you would work a little harder, you have more. So when we apply the whole idea of grace and fairness, hardly ever works. Because the economy of God is not about amounts, how much, but about our disposition and readiness to respond to the invitation. The economy of God, as I mentioned, is the one that invites us to spend ourselves totally and completely. St. Paul reminds us, the Lord emptied himself to become one with us in order to enter and to partake in our human drama. Although emptied himself, he remained God to provide and to offer us an example, to scatter fear and doubt and maybe our human calculations of how we think things should be done. And we are influenced by the things, how we calculate and respond to things. The effects of our lives have a direct result of the way how we respond. If we, many times, we may be envious and jealous of maybe somebody who lives maybe not necessarily the best lifestyle. But on the other hand, they seem to have life going on for them. They may not have a relationship with the Lord. They may not have maybe a relationship with the families, maybe whatever they go through. And yet it seems in the worldly perspective, they're like climbing up the ladder. It's like, you know what? Maybe we would not say it out loud, but deep down it's like, you know what? I would like that. That's something else, man. Well, how about the invitation to relationship with the Lord? Well, we tend to overlook that. Because, and maybe it doesn't matter. What matters is our human way of thinking. That these will give us a sense of accomplishment for a moment. So reflecting upon the invitation of the workers and the way how the story unfolded, I think is important for us from the very fundamental point of our relationship with the Lord. When we look back in the first century Palestine and look at the dynamic of economics and labor, people would work for 1 denarius. There would be equivalent of a 1 day worth of living. So just imagine, if this is your lifestyle, this is how you live. Most people live that. And you will wake up in the morning, 5 o'clock, brush your teeth, whatever, say hello to your family, and you go in the marketplace to be hired, to work. And the landowner shows up, and you are the first or the second one in line to get on the bus and go to work. How do you feel about it? Phew. Good Lord, thank you. At least I know I will provide for my kids and my family today. Thank you. And how about if you're the one who stands and idles for 11 hours? I guess my family will go hungry today. Gosh, what can I do? How can I provide for them? What are they going to think of me? Will my wife will look at me and say, what? What am I going to tell my children? What can I do? Imagine standing on the marketplace for 11 hours and racking your brain of how you will be able to provide for your family. So I don't know if it's better to work in the sweat of a sun or wonder how will you provide for the needs of your family. And in the end of the day, why things change so dramatically? Why agreeing for the daily wage, a fair agreement? Listen, come at 6 o'clock and you're going to get paid. Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it. Why, after 11, 12 hours, things change in one's heart? 180 degrees. Why is that? You know, the Lord uses this line, are you envious? Because I am generous. You know what, envy and jealousy is a very powerful agent in life. Jealousy actually has to do to desire someone's possessions. That's what the jealousy does. I'm jealous because somebody has it. Envy is the sin that actually goes after someone's fortune, good fortune. And that, friends, destroys us. Envy is such a sin that goes after good fortune of another person. Why is he getting a denarius when I was supposed to get more in my own thinking? What are you losing? What are you losing? What is that the Lord provides equal for everyone? What is there for me to lose? I have no gain. I have nothing in that business that will affect me one way or the other. And yet, envy responds with this cancer-like desire to go after people because now they have as much as I do. Imagine that. How quickly we tend to forget the promise of God to provide for our needs at the time when we come to Him and plead our cause. Lord, hire me. And then look around and allow those vices to penetrate, not only penetrate, but to make a decision in such a way that totally betray the beautiful covenant to which the Lord invites us, the sense of personal and intimate relationship with God, who doesn't desire nothing less than our authentic happiness and fulfillment. And this is how the fairness and of grace and the economy of God works. Lavish, most generous and kind God who meets us where we are to provide for our needs. And I think the lesson as we reflect upon the readings today is how do we find ourselves to respond to that invitation and that relationship? Why do we become envious and jealous of others? What is the benefit of mine? Why do I rob myself from the dignity of the gift that God created for me to be? In the name of what? After all, You cannot even honestly and openly go and talk about it. So you get stuck with yourself, dwelling and chewing and being aggravated. And in the process, what happens? Probably those around you get the best out of it, aren't they? Because somehow you need to communicate, and not communicate openly, but angrily. Because that's what anger and jealousy does. Builds our ego that eats us, and in the process eats everybody. Great gift of faith, my friends, that we celebrate today. A beautiful opportunity for us to really respond to the invitation of the Lord to be grateful for the blessings that we have, to be grateful for all that He provides us, and to be open on our hands, to be able to spend trusting that the Lord always will provide, to lift each other up, help one another on this challenging journey of life as brothers and sisters. So much is going on. Why to single each other out? Why allow envy and jealousy to have the last word? Why not to rejoice in the generosity that God has for us? The blessings every single day, your life, your family, your work, everything. The ability to come and worship, the ability to share, the ability to empower one another and lift each other up. So friends, as we come together today, the lessons of this last couple of weeks, I would pray and encourage you to put into practice. Last week, we talked about this idea of forgiveness. Let us try find a ways to forgive those who trespass against us. And applying today's principle, let's do with utmost generosity. Just as God is generous for us, so we can be generous with others, with one another. And sometimes, as you know, we don't have to go far. Maybe just the opportunity of the dinner table tonight. Maybe a phone call or text message, whatever that would be. So together, nourished and strengthened by the sacrament we celebrate, we will truly put into practice the way of life, the Christian way of life, the life worthy of the matter that we called to be disciples of Christ Jesus. Amen.